And the way I see it, it's like brands are starting to have a new type of dialogue with the customer. You know, the customer, the public in general, has a lot more knowledge. They're a lot more discerning. So, you know, being a designer now means something different than being a designer in the previous sort of generation. And I think what makes room for large opportunity is that there's new space for new dialogue. I think there's new room. You know, there's a new. You know, by nature, my practice is sort of very cognizant of art history.
Fashion kind of pays the bills, designing, styling, and the energy that I bring. It's more than just styling, it's about the energy. Virgil just hit me up, you know what I'm saying? He like me around, man. He like me around, you know what I'm saying? We could bounce off each other creatively.
I guess what makes the collection of different genres of this supposed like men's professions is my inherent fingerprint gives all of them a twist, plugging in chords in different sockets, sometimes the wrong ones on purpose, sometimes the right ones on accident.
Not necessarily like,
Yeah.
like a pause in the
I like
music.
synchronicity moments, like where they feel like their movements are the same. I think that that'll have an impact on all these individuals that you see at a certain moment.
Yeah, something to break the line of like individual and chaos, you know?
Yeah. That's a quintessential like drifter outfit where, you know, like the world is at their fingertips, you know, it surrounds them. It's present in their being no matter where they are.
To me, you know, there's a new space to be defined. That's the best way. Like, I don't think we've yet to see how substantial and how innovative and how creative this new merger's meant to be. And, you know, my work is focused on making it, you know, making tangible examples, whether that be a fashion show or a garment or a collaboration, just to find space. And I've always been about like discovering by doing.
I mean, I learned from him, you know what I'm saying? Like, I learned from him just as much as he say he learns from me. I don't get what he could possibly learn from me, but you know what I'm saying, I learned from him a lot.
You know, if I make a garment and I make a blue suit and I put a blue button on it, who invented that? The whole season is to sort of point out how ludicrous that is. That fashion is bigger than these objects of memory. This is like systemically what's wrong with the world. Making a narrative about something that isn't true and persuading the public that it's fact, instead of responding in a format which is as childish as the premise itself. I prefer this route. Craft a collection that's distinctly about the point that I'm trying to make.
So that's sort of my, you know, I take that as my personal goal, is to understand what this new ethos in design can breed, like new, you know, new collections, garments, and new ways that fashion can relate to the public. Yeah, you know, I'm not sort of like comfortable with like a status quo. You know, it's important to note too, originally I was just a, you know, consumer. I was the person that was just buying things that were interesting. I came from an era within streetwear in New York, in Los Angeles, and Japan, that there was sort of like great vibrance because it was new and sort of an independent market. And then obviously times are different. So instead of, when those brands or designers, those things weren't sort of able to continue, I saw a void, you know, picking up the conversation where they left off.
Fashion isn't about the clothing. It's about the picture that's painted about how clothing can reinforce or destabilize prejudice. And that's the collection. That's the culmination of all the ideas and the life lived.
So for me, it's just about, you know, expressing ideas and sort of building a project that's sort of tangible in a way. You know, everyone from Kanye West, Pharrell Williams to Basquiat or Warhol, you know, I'm no one, sort of, as the first statement. Second statement is we're a part of a generation, you know, an art history, a movement that goes beyond just the website hypebeast. You know, before we were sort of documenting these products, it was, you know, there was the sex shop with Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren. There was Nigo and Hiroshi sort of crisscrossing and sharing street culture ideas. But, you know, I draw that line all the way back to the Renaissance, or, you know, these art movements. So, you know, essentially I'm just an assistant to the people that came before me, trying to add to the design that goes forward for the next generation.
The purist obviously knows the whole history about everything and tries to keep this sort of sacred space so that dialogue can be had. But the other faction is like the tourist who's like intrigued, you know, like they're gonna be right there listening to the conversation. You know, it's fashion world, and then it's the newcomers. You know, they're intrigued, they're gaining knowledge, they want to come in with an open mind. They either preserve their tourist mindset or they adopt into a purist, but those two factions make up the community.
An industry and ecosystem to not see us, you know, as this sort of like fly-by-night trend, this sort of hyper-consumer. You know, there's real discerning taste. There's kids in our community that know, you know, Helmut Lang collections by heart. You know, there's kids with crazy archive collections, and then they also understand the sort of camaraderie amongst themselves. They understand that true mix. My only contention was that there's no designer that manifested that. You know, there's more. There's a lot now.
Ironically, quotes, my real profession is architecture. A lot of people quote my career, it's like, oh, you didn't go to fashion design school. But I went to architecture, and I make architecture in my fashion design studio.
Had a runway show just a couple days ago where, you know, I'm fortunate to debut ideas that I've crafted over the last 20 years on the same sort of platform that, you know, fashion's major recording system exists, which is Paris. You know, those brands that are showing on the same schedule are, you know, 50, 60 years old and are esteemed because of their history. And for me, it's important that our history, the collective history or the collective nuances of the culture that exists in this room, that they make their way to Paris and they make their way on that recording system of fashion of a contemporary sense.
It's just the graduated study of low versus high and why that's compelling. Because previous generations would have just separated those, because it's easier to not deal with the clash of those two.
A true sense is just be myself in any sort of scenario, so I'm authentic to that. It's not like that to me is what should be happening in 2017. You know, I shouldn't be sitting like looking at photos of these important moments and wonder why are these other cultural things so important, but then these other ones are so separate. You know, I very much, you know, can sleep at night because there were Jordans at the Met, you know, and the Migos performed there. And, you know, to me, my work is sort of founded on that. It's like no longer being the peanut gallery or staring with your friends like, man, so-and-so should have won this VMA or something. It's like, wait, let me get off the couch, make something, and sort of put those two things on the table so that kids can rejoice in feeling like, oh, this institution is recognizing what's happening in the street.
You know, I debuted a show that was, you know, that features sculptures of mine next to fashion of mine. It was a show that was sort of, you know, multi-sensory in a way, and that end result is my sort of offering to the discipline of culture, not specifically fashion or art.